Hey, welcome to the Elle Russ Show, where we explore ways to get healthy, wealthy, and wise. With a combination of guest interviews and solo episodes, I hope you will be inspired and motivated to become the best of whatever you are. I'm Elle Russ, #1 best-selling author and subject expert with over a decade of helping thousands of people across the globe. Visit my website, elleruss.com, to learn more about free guides, masterclasses, online courses, and more. Enjoy the show. All right, we're going to talk about the MIT abundance flip. I know this is an interesting one. Welcome back. I'm excited about today's topic because it's fascinating, it's a little sneaky, and it's actually full of some life lessons we can all use. So I'm going to dive into the story, the famous true story of the MIT Blackjack Team and how they basically beat the system and how the system beat them back. And so we're going to take a little walk through some of the psychology involved with the whole ordeal. This really isn't about blackjack or about gambling. It's about how we take the same psychological tactics in the scenario I'm about to present to you, and we flip them and we create a different mindset for ourselves. So there's a lot to unpack here. Let's get into it. So let's talk about the MIT Blackjack Team. This is a true story of outsmarting the house. They literally beat the casinos. If you have not heard of the MIT Blackjack Team, here's the quick version. Back in the 80s and 90s, there was a group of MIT students and former students, and they came together to beat casinos at blackjack. If you're not familiar with MIT, it stands for Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Many of our Nobel Prize-winning recipients have come from MIT. It's considered globally the best in math, science, engineering, and technology. So it's super bright people. And this team did it. They beat the casinos legally. They were not cheating. They used a strategy called card counting. And you've probably heard about that before. Card counting's not illegal. Most people cannot do it in their heads, though. And so most people get caught at card counting through cheating, like using counters or colluding with dealers or something like that. They didn't break any laws. They were just smart as shit. And they made 10 million plus fucking dollars, okay? So at one point, they enlisted Hollywood professional, hair and makeup people to give them professional disguises even after the casinos started to sort of be on to them. So they just had these amazing mathematical and statistical brains. And before I get into this, let's talk about card counting for a minute. And so if this part bothers your brain, I get it. But for people that are like, wait, what is counting cards in blackjack? How does it work? Card counting is not really as useful in other games. Blackjack it is. Counting cards is a strategy that just allows a player who can, if you can do it in your head like these MIT people, it allows a player who can track the composition of what's remaining in the card deck. So when you're tracking the composition of the remaining deck, you can make smarter betting decisions, right? So in blackjack, you're playing directly with the dealer. So you're not playing with the other players. So the dealer's drawing the cards and you're essentially playing with them. In blackjack, the odds of winning, which is basically getting to 21, having enough cards to reach 21, the odds of winning blackjack, they shift based on which cards are left in the deck because the cards account for numbers. So getting to 21 in terms of counting, high cards are tens and even jack, queen, king, ace. Those are considered like high cards. Those are way better for the player because they basically just increase the chances of them getting to 21, hitting blackjack. But also, if a lot of high cards are remaining, it makes it more likely for the dealer to bust, meaning the dealer will exceed 21 right away when they start drawing additional cards. Now, you've also got low cards, right? You have the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, and those favor the house. They favor the casino because they're low cards. They help the dealer build a safe hand without busting over 21. So card counting isn't really about counting each card per se. It's how many of the group of things are left in the deck. How many high cards are left, how many low cards are left. It's assigning a value to these cards. So low cards like 2 through 6, a card counter would assign like a +1. If it's a neutral card like 7 to 9, they would assign it 0. And if it were a high card like the 10 or the Jack, King, Queen, King, Ace, they would count that as a -1. So the cards are dealt, and the player's keeping a mental count of the composition, so to speak. So running a positive count, okay? So like a positive running count, like if they're at the table and they're like, okay, the positive running count is 13, it's 14. That means there are more high cards remaining in a deck. That's the advantage. That's the advantage to the card counter. Now, as they're assigning these values, like I told, they assigned negative values to the low cards. So if there's a negative running count, that means that the deck is full of low cards, and that would favor the house, and that tips you off as the card counter to not bet big or bet at all, etc. So this method of counting cards gives, every one of these players who can do it an advantage because they can identify moments when the odds swing in their favor, and they can adjust that bet accordingly. So if the count is really high, the player is going to bet more because they know the chances of being dealt a strong hand or the chances of the dealer busting over 21, the odds are going to be greater. When they know that the count is low, they bet less. They're going to minimize losses when the odds are in favor, right? Of course, who wouldn't? All right. That's just a small card counting part of it. This is not necessary to the discussion, but in case you were curious, like what is card counting? How do they do it in their head? Card counting is not illegal, but casinos are allowed to kick you out if they suspect you of it. For any reason, they're allowed to kick you out. So it's not illegal, but clearly frowned upon. And if you can get away with doing it without being detected like the MIT team did, then you've got millions of dollars in store for you. All right, so back to the MIT team. They didn't flippantly do this. They were disciplined. They were strategic. They trained for hours. They worked in teams, and they even had investors backing them. Okay, they basically turned blackjack into a science, and over time they won like $10 million plus. But here's the thing about casinos, right? They don't just sit back and hope that the odds save them somehow. They're watching always, right? And that's where it gets interesting because casinos have obviously a whole arsenal of tools and tactics to spot players who are winning too much and, maybe take an extra look at. So I just want to get into like, how does the casino even know how to start watching you? What would be the tip-offs? So they don't just stumble upon card counters and high rollers. It's a very precise system in place to flag the players that might need a closer look. So when you're and by the way, I don't gamble. I hate casinos. I can't stand Vegas. Like I have no interest in like the Vegas Strip other than to maybe see a comedian or something, but I'm just not interested in gambling. But I find this world really fascinating in terms of the back end psychology. So let's get into, again, how the casino knows to start watching you. It's very precise. So you've got dealers at the table. And then behind them are the pit bosses, and the pit bosses are sort of managing a large area. So if you're sitting at a blackjack table, the first line of, quote, surveillance, you might say, is the dealer. They're trained to pay attention. The patterns, if your patterns are betting small when the cards are bad and subtly ramping up your bets when the count swings in your favor, that could be a red flag to a dealer. Let's say a dealer notices what I just said, and then they call over a pit boss, or they signal the pit boss, which is basically like the manager overseeing all the table games. And it's not just about numbers at this point. They're observing behavior. Are you focused? Do you seem calculating? Are you acting like you know too much, right? That's when a pit boss might take a closer look at you and alert the eyes in the sky, right? The surveillance team. Here's another tactic I find fascinating. So let's say you're on a winning streak at a casino, and let's say you've just pocketed $10,000. The casino staff might approach you not to accuse you of anything, but to congratulate you, right? You're on fire, great job. Maybe they bring over some champagne, right? There's a deeper strategy at play here other than wanting you to feel good and keep going. A couple things here. For one, it looks very good to them. People are all over the casino seeing a winner being congratulated, exciting. Oh, 10 grand. The word gets around real quick. Oh my God, he won 10,000. That's going to make you want to gamble more, according to them. And they're usually right. So it's good for business. It might motivate more people to bet knowing that someone right there is celebrated and being young. Being celebrated and have like this big win. They're not just congratulating you and doing that, and they're not just congratulating you and hoping that you'll feel good and stay at the table. They're assessing you. They're watching your demeanor. Are you giddy? Are you overconfident? Are you calm and collected? Because here's the thing, someone who's calm and collected might not just be riding a lucky streak. See what I'm saying? They might actually know what they're doing. So these are subtle psychological ways of feeling you out without making it too obvious. And then, of course, you've got the surveillance cameras, the eyes in the sky. If you've ever been to a casino, you see them everywhere. But they're not like just looking for cheaters. What they're doing is they're analyzing patterns. They will replay footage to see if your betting aligns with the flow of the game. And if you're consistently betting big at the right times, they're going to flag you for deeper scrutiny. They're going to notice that pattern. Now, I want to move on to the psychology of the perks, right? Obviously, it may seem obvious to go, okay, I see how the casinos keep you playing. They give you all the stuff of a presidential suite, a comped meal, yeah, Elle, it's obvious. But it's not, it's more than that. Here's where it gets interesting, and I think the juicy part of this episode. So, once a casino identifies you like you're a big winner, their goal isn't to scare you off because they're afraid of losing money. Their goal is to keep you playing, right? And how do they do that? Well, yeah, I get it. We have to look at the psychology because they do this. It's more than just like, oh, they comp you a room. What is the comping of the room and the $500 meal? It is creating a sense of abundance and luxury. That sense of abundance and luxury is irresistible. Here's how the psychology works. Let's say you win $10,000. You're like, oh my God, they come down, they celebrate you, pop some champagne. They offer to upgrade your room. Suddenly you're staying in the kind of suite you've only seen in magazines. Now they're comping a $500 meal. They send over the champagne, right? All of these things. Maybe they throw in tickets to a very expensive, hard to get tickets for show on the strip. Why would they do that? Obviously, they want to keep you there in gambling, but let's look at this anchoring psychology here. They're anchoring you psychologically, anchoring you to this high roller experience. They're making you feel like you already arrived, like this shit is your new normal. And it's fucking genius because by surrounding you with luxury, they make the winnings you just got, the 10K, feel fucking small. You're now sitting in a $3,000 a night presidential suite, right? Or whatever it is. You're eating a $500 dinner, you get lobster. So that $10,000 you just won doesn't really seem like a lot anymore. It starts to feel like monopoly money. And so what do people do? They gamble it back. Not because they're reckless, but because the environment has shifted the perception of value. Their perception of the value of the money they just won is so much less now based on these perks. Do you see that? So I hope you're seeing how now I'm going to talk about flipping that script on yourself, using some of these tactics on yourself for good, bringing it back to us. What if we could use similar psychological tricks? Newsflash, we can, but use them intentionally, right? For our own benefit, not because we're going to lose the 10 grand. We can create an abundance mindset without needing a casino to do it for us. And look, you might have heard of some of these tips before, but they're worth a review. Upgrade your environment. Casinos use luxury to make you feel rich. And when you feel rich, you're happier. You're feeling like life is full of possibility. You might even take more risks in the real world. I'm not saying take dumb ones, but you can do the same thing in your everyday life. You can create a space somewhere, an object, something. Even if it's just a small section of your home that reflects abundance you want to feel. It doesn't have to be extravagant. Maybe it's just a new set of bed sheets. Maybe it's a fake vase of flowers so that you can feel like you have fresh flowers every day, and that makes you feel wealthy and abundant. Maybe you just, it's cleaning up the clutter. So some of these small changes make a big difference because it's how you feel about yourself and your surroundings and your environment. That's why the environment that those perks are created by these casinos, it makes so much psychological sense. So if there's any way you can upgrade, maybe you're like, oh, I love the feeling of fur. I'd love a fur coat, or I'd love a fur throw. Okay, until you can afford the $7,000 to $14,000 mink throw, maybe you go to Target or TJ Maxx and you get a faux fur one and you put it on your couch. I know a lot of people don't want fur throws. I'm just trying to think of something crazy extravagant that you can feel the feelings of without having to buy real fur, right? There's a lot of other ways. Let's say you love jewelry. You wish you had a bunch of jewelry. I mean, maybe there's some fantasy jewelry you can buy and wear around the house just to feel holding in your hands or looking at yourself wearing and imagining it being real. There's lots of things you can do to upgrade in your environment. Lighting is key to me. I have so many electric candles in my house. They're on timers. I like dim, low light in the evening. It's cozy. I don't like bright white lights. You've never gone to some fancy, luxurious spa or hotel where they had bright ass fucking library overhead lighting. Okay? So if I like to create a luxurious sort of atmosphere in my own house through lighting and candles and some other things, scents. Um, my fiance is always like, oh, it always smells so good in here. Or people come into my house like, oh, it smells so good. I love that. That makes me feel luxurious. So, maybe for you, it's a $10 candle or it's a diffuser with oil, whatever you like. For me, it's those kind of things can really make a difference. Now, granted, I already live in a big house. It's already kind of in and of itself by the size. But before that, living in very tiny places, apartments for many, many years and decades, I can tell you there's still a way to do this. So casinos anchor you to the idea of luxury. How are you going to anchor yourself to it? Partly through gratitude, because this will eventually feel like you are already living in luxury because you're so grateful for all the things you have. We know this. I'm just repeating it and imprinting it. You need to take a moment to appreciate what you have every day, if not more than once a day. Just studies have been shown gratitude is one of the most powerful ways to shift your mindset, especially from scarcity to abundance. This is not new. Did a podcast on it already. It's just like telling the universe, look, I see the good in my life, or God, whatever you believe in. I see the good. I'm ready for more. So that's also creating a sense of luxury to some degree through just gratitude, feeling lucky. Because those are the feelings that people feel when they're in the 3,000 square foot presidential suite at the Four Seasons in Vegas and they're overlooking the strip. They feel abundant and luxurious and happy and lucky. You can do the same in your life without a casino. It doesn't matter if the win is big or small. So, yeah, you might win, you get 10K at a casino. That's great. But also, this is a lesson in celebrating the small wins. Did you finish a project? Celebrate. Did you take one step towards a goal? Celebrate. Celebrating every win is sort of a sign you're moving forward. It's the momentum that's worth recognizing, even if it's not like the full end result that happens and it's already there. You can recognize momentum towards it along the way. That's celebratory. A lot of people wait to the end to celebrate. It's like, hey, there are moments along the way you can do this too. And then the idea of reinvesting in yourself. So obviously, casinos encourage players to reinvest their winnings, right? By gambling more so that they can win it back, right? And you can do this in a way that serves you. You've got to take some of your time, your energy, maybe resources, and you have to pull them. You have to pull them and put them into something that helps you grow. It could be a book. It could be a class, even if it's just time spend doing something you actually love. So like the more you're investing in yourself, maybe it's a massage, it doesn't matter. The more abundant you're going to feel, the more you're investing in yourself. So this is what the casinos do. They're investing in themselves by taking the hit on giving you that $3,000 a night presidential suite because it's really only costing them a couple $100, right? But they want that 10 fucking grand back. So they're willing to invest the 200 on that, the 500 dinner, the bottle of champagne, because you're likely to gamble all the shit you want away, and they'd rather take a $700 loss or whatever than a 10K loss. They're investing in themselves by saying, all right, look, we're going to take a little bit of hit here. They may not gamble it back, but we're pretty sure they will, right? So most of the time, it probably is the case. So it's like, let's put them in this luxury. We'll do this. We'll get them the caviar. Right? They are investing in their own self as a casino. And then I think probably one of the big ones here in both the card counter of the MIT story and like basically the casino uh, story is analyzing patterns. Just like the casinos are analyzing the patterns of the player's behavior. Just like the card counters are analyzing the leftover deck composition. Casinos analyzing patterns in players' behaviors, spotting counters, even high rollers, yeah. But we can analyze the patterns in our own lives. We should, we must. What keeps happening to you that feels like you're cursed? Like, of course this would happen. This always happens. Something like that. Ran into another shitty guy. These fucking men, like whatever the thing keeps happening to you. Why do I keep getting fired from jobs? Like whatever it is. These are patterns. When you analyze these patterns of your life, you uncover some massive ass truths about your habits and about your choices. And when you do that, oh, you can see that the consequences and outcomes that you don't like can be changed. So if you just take a little step back and you just observe some recurring themes and patterns, it's like maybe you're analyzing how do you respond to challenging times? Or maybe you're asking yourself, like, is there a pattern like in how I handle relationships that keeps coming up, like with friends or with, romantic partners? Is there a pattern in how you might approach goals of yours? Because you can see it two ways. You can see a pattern that's hurting you and hindering you, but you might also see a pattern that's helping you. So it could be so much more than just what to fix. It could be like, what is it that you need to celebrate and do more of? Celebrating a pattern that's healthy and helping you. Every time you're faced with a big opportunity and maybe you notice self-doubt, maybe you're creeping in some self-sabotagey stuff, that's all valuable information. It's like the casino surveillance team catching a player. Only when the odds shift, right? Because when you identify the patterns, you can adjust your strategy to make better choices. You can break the negative cycles. You're basically setting yourself up for success. So analyzing your life patterns isn't just self-reflection. It's basically self-mastery. It's how you get to where you go next. So by the way, just the Blackjack Team, I want to let everyone know. I read the book many, many years ago when it came out. And then they made a movie. The book is called Bringing Down the House, and it's a true story written by one of the MIT members. And then the movie years later came out and is called 21. Wonderful, wonderful book. I think like a lot of readers, when a book is turned into a movie, you're not as satisfied. I think the only time I was really stoked on the interpretation of a book to movie was Life of Pi. If you have not read that book, it's an amazing book. This one's good. I mean, it's still a fun movie, but it's not as good as the book, I think. But here's the deal. They cracked the code, man. They beat the system. They outsmarted them. And that same psychology and tactics that both the casinos use to keep people playing to win their money back, or that the blackjack team did to analyze patterns in what was left in the composition of the deck, these tactics are either working against you or for you. It's just depending how you use them. So the next time you're thinking about wealth, abundance, all of that stuff, think about these frickin' casinos and think about how they create an environment where you feel rich. And when you feel rich, you feel unstoppable. And when you feel rich and unstoppable, you feel ready to take risks like blowing the 10 grand you just won, even though you know damn well it could really pay off your car or the summer camp for your child. But see, the way that they put the psychology on you, by immersing you into the abundance and the environment, it makes you have a false feeling of success, right? It actually makes that 10K you just won from them worthless. And that's how they win it back, through psychological anchoring and manipulation. So you should ask yourself, how can you manipulate yourself? How can you create the environment intentionally in a way that empowers you instead of diminishing you, instead of making you go blow the 10K you just won? Because the house doesn't always have to win. if you're fucking designing the game, and you are designing the game, the casino is live. So a couple things about like the book and the film, whether you see it or not, I won't do any spoiler alerts. I mean, the outcome is the outcome. We know what happened. They got away with it. But one of the reasons it wasn't illegal is because card counting, when it's illegal, is when you're using devices to count cards, like an earpiece, a clicker, you're colluding with dealers. That is not allowed. But these people were just basically working with amongst each other, sending signals. They actually didn't cheat. They're so fucking smart, they were able to do it in their head, which most people can't, which is why people try to cheat at counting cards. Now, the surveillance technology now, way more advanced than it was then. Could you get away with it now? Yes, you could. You'd have to really play it smart. So how could you get away with, gaming a casino in blackjack through counting cards? Well, first of all, you'd have to pull some of the moves they did and learn lessons from that. They had a pattern that was a little bit too obvious. They had signals that didn't change that then were able to be found. But aside from that, let's say it's just you and you're brilliant and you can count cards in your head. Most people can't do that, right? So the way that they did it is they'd have a team and they'd have different players sitting at the tables. And if one of the tables looked like it was kind of hot, meaning the MIT kid was there counting cards, if it started to look like a good table to come in and bet on, they would put their arms behind them. They would have a signal, like stretch. They just put their arms behind them and like stretch their, shoulders out. And that would alert the big player rolling around who's going to come to that table and bet big money and win. Okay, so that's kind of how they did it. At one point, I think I told you they had to have Hollywood makeup artists to create disguises for them because the casinos were kind of onto them and realized this was happening. So they got kicked out and banned from a lot of casinos, but it was all legal and they were able to keep their money. Look, I'm not a casino person. I don't like gambling. I don't like casinos. I'm not really interested in like the Vegas Strip, right? But I find the story so fascinating because they got away with it, because their brains were so fucking amazing at computing math and statistics. And they also haven't suffered since from it. Everyone knows about the team. You can look it up. They're kind of glorified to some degree because it's such an amazing story. So if you were going to do it now, could you get away with it? Sure. But then in that case, you probably wouldn't want to win more than $2,000 to $3,000 a night or a bet, right? Because the casino might be okay with 2 to 3 grand. You keep winning 10, 20, 50 grand every time you roll in there, they're going to fucking eventually kick you out if they think you're card counting, or it's just going to draw too much attention, right? So maybe 2, 3 grand a night, it might be nice. You're winning a little bit. They like it to see that. They might even allow it, in a way. Like, let's say a famous card counter went in there. They'd probably kick them out if they won too much, but maybe winning a little is not so bad, right? You have to be a really great actor and you have to adopt restraint with betting to not have the pattern show up, right? But at some point, it's sort of going to be found out, right? Because even if it may be in your head, they'll be able to know that there's something going on, that you're not just lucky. And most people that come to Vegas and go gambling know nothing about the game, have no strategies at all. It's just dumb luck, if anything. So you'd have to lose a little. You'd have to make small bets. You'd have to play the game a little bit smarter than they did, right? But at the time in the 80s and 90s, this was just an amazing number, $10 million. Side note, the book is called Bringing Down the House. The movie is 21 because if you looked up Bringing Down the House in movies, it's like a Queen Latifah, Steve Martin film. So Bringing Down the House is the book about this story, and 21 is the movie. So think about your patterns and analyzing them for your success, how you're going to create a vibe and a feeling of abundance that you're seeking. Let's use some of their tactics, right? When people talk about intention, law of attraction, whatever it is, when someone is putting something out there, this is not to say go buy the BMW and take a huge risk because you feel like a fucking high roller when you cannot afford it so that you can make yourself feel luxurious by driving around a BMW. Of course, don't do that. It's obviously not what I'm saying. Let me give you the smallest, dumbest, stupidest example ever that I used so many years ago when I was broke. So I use Q-tips every day. Like I just Q-tip my ears. But, the Q-tip has two ends, so you'd think one for one ear, one for the other. But I kind of like to do swipe mine twice. But when you're broke as shit, this was something that I did, like, to make me feel more luxurious. Hear me out. Like, because of money, we're on no object. And honestly, I did the cost analysis, and me using two Q-tips every day versus one, if you added it up over the course of the year, was a very inexpensive way to create a sense of luxury, like I could just waste Q-tips kind of vibe. So that's kind of what I did, right? Because to me, only using one Q-tip felt like saving. It made me feel broke and stupid, like in that moment. That's just me in my head back then. So for me, it's like, and sometimes I'll still catch myself doing it. Like I'll only use one. I'm like, oh no, I should save it. And I'm like, why am I doing it? Well, no, just use two Q-tips. This is how you like it. It's really like, you're not wasting money. So it could be something as stupid as Q-tips if you're that broke, right? It's what's something you could get. That was something I could get behind. It made me feel like I had a little bit more disposable income at the time. It's not like I was trying to save Q-tips. You get my drift? It's a psychological trick on oneself. So is there something like that you could do? Don't go buy a Fabergé egg and put it in your fucking house, right? But maybe you buy a replica. If you want something like that, what can you do for yourself, like to give yourself the experience that's going to make you rise above and just change that mindset? All right, I hope you have had fun learning all about the MIT Blackjack Team. Just think about this the next time you're thinking about abundance, wealth, how much money you have. Think about this MIT Blackjack Team Casino Abundance Flip, flipping it on yourself. Because literally, the house does not always have to win. Not when you're designing the fucking game, and you are. All right. If you haven't already, I would so appreciate it if you could write a review on Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for being here with me. I really do appreciate you listening. And if you have any suggestions for episodes or comments, you can always reach me at @elleruss.com. All right. Hope you have a great week. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this show, I would so appreciate you leaving a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about partner discounts on amazing products, visit elleruss.com/discounts.